July 12, 2008, Montauk Point, Long Island. Local beachgoers stumbled across a chilling discovery. A bloated, hairless carcass roughly the size of a large house cat with a beak-like snout, sharp teeth, and a form that seemed ripped from a nightmare. They snapped a photo, and soon after, it unleashed a global frenzy. This animal became known as the Montauk Monster, and it could have only come from one place, a secretive government facility across the water, Plum Island.
Deadly diseases, terrorism threats, and top-secret government research. Sounds like a best-selling novel, but it's the storyline for a real lab operated by the Department of Homeland Security.
Welcome to Uncharted. I'm Dan. Tonight we are visiting a labyrinth filled with government experiments, bioweapons, and Nazis? Buckle up. It's time for takeoff. Destination, Plum Island. Located about 2 miles off the coast of Long Island is a small island owned by the U.S. government. And after the Montauk Monster washed up on shore, rumors began to swirl that the island was home to a top-secret government facility that creates bioweapons, animal hybrids, and was possibly even experimenting on people. It sounds crazy, but then another animal washed up on shore that couldn't be identified. And then again, another monster, and then 2 more. By 2010, most believed the rumors about Plum Island to be true. And then something else washed up on the beach. Only this time, it wasn't an animal. It was a human body. Well, maybe.
And right now, police are investigating a grim discovery on a Plum Island beach. The identity still a mystery at this hour. Good evening, everyone. Investigators are going to be closely watching the next few tide cycles for any new evidence.
Officially known as the Plum Island Animal Disease Center, it was established in 1954 by the USDA to study and protect U.S. livestock from catastrophic disease, specifically foot and mouth and African swine fever, pathogens that could cripple agriculture. The Plum Island Animal Disease Center is the only lab in the U.S. authorized to work with these live samples. If any of these got out, it would cripple the country's food supply within weeks. It's so contagious that when an outbreak happens, they slaughter all the animals on farms with confirmed cases, and then slaughter all the animals on adjacent farms, even if they're healthy.
Announced a new $14 million funding package to combat the spread of foot and mouth disease. Livestock farmers claim the money doesn't compare to the cost of an industry wipeout.
Without a doubt, Plum Island has studied diseases that affect livestock, but declassified records reveal a much darker history. For years after the Montauk Monster, stories circulated that Plum Island was conducting genetic experiments. So when bodies of these strange creatures continued washing up on beaches, it could only mean one thing. The rumors about Plum Island were true. Walking along the East River, a local noticed a bizarre-looking carcass that washed up on shore. It kind of looked like a pig, but pigs have 4 toes that end in a hoof, while the Manhattan Monster's feet had 5 toes that ended in claws. Others suggested it could be a rat. New York is known for having huge rats.
They're everywhere.
Oh my God, look at them all.
Dirty, stinking rats. Dozens of them swarming around trash cans. Just look at all these rats. This is crazy. Scurrying down the sidewalks, even climbing up into cars in the heart of Midtown Manhattan.
Not exactly this big. And rats have 4 toes on their back feet, while the Manhattan Monster had 5. So what is it? Your guess is as good as mine. Let me know what you think in the comments. Plum Island is supposed to be a medical research facility focused on animal diseases, not monstrous hybrids or human experimentations. Originally, it was under the purview of the Department of Agriculture, but Plum Island is actually a part of Homeland Security. Why? Well, because Plum Island's true nature is bioweapons research, to develop ways to weaponize pathogens against enemy food supplies, and possibly its people. In January of 2010, a security guard patrolling Plum Island's restricted Southwest Beach found a human body, a 6-foot-tall black male with a large build. He had abnormally large fingers. Bizarre rumors followed. This corpse had 5 symmetrical holes drilled into its skull, and fingers so long they seemed inhuman.
Investigators with the DA's office, along with the medical examiner's office, will analyze the remains to try and determine an identity and also try to figure out how they ended up here.
The investigation faded swiftly. No identification ever released. No detailed cause of death ever provided. It's just vague, no foul play from the police. The rumors now seem true. This wasn't just a body, it was a window into Plum Island's hidden activities. Activities fueled by Nazis? This is no conspiracy, it's declassified history. After World War II, the United States launched Operation Paperclip, a secret program that recruited Nazi scientists, engineers, and technicians. Among the scientists was Erich Traub. The U.S. had taken great interest in Traub's research and provided a place for him to continue it on Plum Island. During the war, Traub was the head of a secret bioweapons lab on Reims Island, located in the Baltic Sea. He reported directly to Heinrich Himmler, the brutal SS chief who answered only to Adolf Hitler. Traub's mission was to weaponize diseases like foot and mouth. Traub was obsessed with utilizing biting insects to be the carriers of the deadly disease. His logic being, if you drop infected insects on enemy troops or their food supplies, you can defeat an entire army without ever firing a round. In 1944, he led an expedition to Turkey to collect rinderpest samples, a virus so lethal it could decimate cattle populations. But his work wasn't limited to animals. Declassified records reveal Traub conducted experiments on human subjects, testing pathogens and their effects on prisoners in Nazi camps. These experiments, often fatal, explored how diseases could be spread through ticks or direct infection, seeking to perfect biological weapons. Ticks are nature's perfect bioweapon vectors. They are small, extremely resilient, and they feed on human and animal blood, making them motivated disease spreaders.
Borrelia burgdorferi, known to millions as Lyme disease, infects more than 300,000 Americans a year. It is spread by infected deer ticks. Not treated, it could lead to neurological damage. Now lawmakers want to know, where did infected ticks come from, and is the Pentagon to blame? Congressman Chris Smith points to a secret Army bioweapons program to weaponize ticks in the 1950s.
Bioweapons specialists stuffed ticks with pathogens to cause severe disability, disease, even death to potential enemies.
Army labs like Plum Island and Fort Detrick, not far from the largest concentration of Lyme cases, were capable of breeding millions of bugs a month. The link was first outlined by Stanford's Chris Newby, who wrote about it in Bitten, The Secret History of Lyme Disease and Biological Weapons.
A corpse with holes drilled in its skull found on Plum Island's beach echoes the kind of unethical human experimentation Traub conducted in Nazi labs. Could Plum Island have continued such experiments, perhaps testing pathogens or genetic modifications on human subjects in secret? The lab's history of bioweapons research and Traub's documented human experiments make this a disturbing possibility. In 1951, Traub's team deliberately released ticks outside Plum Island's labs for experimental tests. Declassified documents detail how the lab studied ticks as vectors for pathogens, infecting them with viruses and tracking their spread in open fields. In 1975, a mysterious illness emerged in Old Lyme, Connecticut, just 13 miles from Plum Island. Some people got rashes, some fevers, others swollen and painful joints, accompanied with fatigue, headaches, dizziness, and shortness of breath. Some even became paralyzed.
And more ticks are testing positive for a certain disease you may not have heard of before. It's a disease that spreads like Lyme disease. It acts more like malaria. And after this winter's weather, experts say we are in for a bumper crop of ticks.
To this day, the CIA denied this outbreak came from the lab, but they have to. Because in 1969, President Nixon banned offensive bioweapons research, calling it repugnant to the conscience. Yet in 1975, the Church Committee report revealed the CIA maintained a secret bioweapons stockpile, defying Nixon's orders. If the CIA ignored a presidential ban, could Plum Island, under their oversight, have continued its research? With a top-secret bioweapons lab less than 13 miles away, influenced by a Nazi scientist obsessed with utilizing ticks to transmit diseases, I don't think it's much of a stretch to call Plum Island Ground Zero. This is Erich Traub's MO. So the real question is, was the outbreak an accident? Or was the US government deliberately experimenting on its own citizens? If it was deliberate, it wouldn't be the first time. Plum Island's secrets are unsettling, but the U.S. government's history of experimenting on its own people casts a much darker shadow. In the 1930s, the Tuskegee experiment infected 400 men with syphilis to see how the disease affected black males. They promised medical care, but instead gave placebos or left them untreated. For 40 years, they tracked the disease's progression as these men suffered, went blind, or died. Even after penicillin became the standard treatment in the 1940s, it was withheld. Wives and children were infected, spreading the tragedy. Exposed by the Washington Star in 1972, the study led to a $10 million settlement and a federal apology, but the damage was already done.
On behalf of the American people, what the United States government did was shameful, and I am sorry.
In the 1950s, Operation Sea Spray was conducted by the Navy. They sprayed a bacteria over San Francisco to simulate a bioweapons attack, exposing 800,000 people. 11 were hospitalized with severe infections, and one, Edward Nevin, died. Stanford doctors noted it was the first recorded outbreak of this bacteria in the region. The public wasn't told until 1976. Nevin's family sued the government in 1981, but the case was dismissed under sovereign immunity, leaving questions about accountability in such tests. In 1953, the CIA launched MKUltra, a mind control program that dosed civilians, soldiers, and scientists with LSD and other drugs, often without consent. They targeted people in bars, hospitals, and prisons. Scientist Frank Olson died after a dose, falling from a New York hotel window. Murder or suicide, it's still unclear. Most records were destroyed in 1973, but the 1975 Church Committee confirmed the program's chilling scope. Olson's family received a $750,000 settlement in 1976, yet declassified memos in 2018 revealed even more sub-projects involving hypnosis and sensory deprivation. There's also the 1946 Guatemala syphilis study. Funded by the NIH, U.S. researchers infected 1,300 Guatemalans with syphilis and gonorrhea to test penicillin using needles, abrasions, and direct contact without consent. Over 30% received no treatment and were just left to suffer. In the 1940s all the way up to the 1970s, the U.S. government conducted radiation experiments. The Atomic Energy Commission injected plutonium into 18 hospital patients, including a 4-year-old boy, to study excretion rates for nuclear workers' safety. Mentally disabled children were fed radioactive cereal under the guise of a science club. Soldiers were exposed to nuclear blasts to test radiation. Many developed cancers and died. Exposed in a 1986 report titled American Nuclear Guinea Pigs, in 1995, President Clinton apologized and compensated victims with $4.8 million, but families reported ongoing genetic health issues in descendants.
They fail both the test of our national values and the test of humanity. In one scientist injected plutonium into 18 patients without their knowledge. In another, doctors exposed indigent cancer patients to excessive doses of radiation, a treatment from which it is virtually impossible that they could ever benefit.
As we peel back these layers of history, it's worth asking, what's happening on Plum Island today? The facility hasn't stood still. In fact, far from it. Announced back in 2008 by the Department of Homeland Security and USDA, operations are transitioning to a new state-of-the-art site, the National Bio and Agro Defense Facility, or NBAF, in Manhattan, Kansas. So Kansas, smack in the middle of America's agriculture belt, now hosts a lab studying diseases that could ravage cattle, pigs, and poultry, the backbone of our food supply. Imagine a containment failure, foot-and-mouth disease spreading through the Midwest, halting exports, spiking meat prices overnight.
For the first time ever, the average price for a pound of ground beef is more than $6.
The rising cost of food is driving an affordability crisis, forcing families to make tough choices.
Many shoppers experiencing high anxiety at the grocery store.
The bird flu and extreme weather conditions are driving up the cost of everyday items.
One accident could trigger economic chaos, and these accidents have happened in the past. Plum Island boasted about being the safest virus lab in the world, but is it? In 1978, there was a foot-and-mouth disease outbreak due to a faulty ventilation system. Every animal on the island had to be incinerated. Shortly after the USDA inspected the facility, they wrote a 190-page report detailing how mismanaged it was. And then there was the outbreak of Rift Valley fever on the island. Scientists were weaponizing RVF by injecting mosquitoes. These mosquitoes broke containment and bit the scientists. They were treated and no one died. But if the mosquitoes got off the island and made it to the public, Rift Valley fever presents like the flu, but if left untreated, it kills you. In 2004, improper waste sterilization led to another breach, with untreated biological material found outside the lab, sparking congressional scrutiny and USDA fines. Even in recent years, the facility has faced criticism for biosafety lapses. A 2019 Government Accountability Office report highlighted vulnerabilities in handling high containment pathogens, including inadequate training of staff dealing with exotic viruses. In 2021, during a routine audit, inspectors noted issues with wastewater treatment systems that could potentially allow trace contaminants to escape into surrounding waters. And this goes on, not with just Plum Island, but from labs all across the country.
The blunder relates to a locked freezer storing 93 live samples of Hendra virus, 2 live samples of hantavirus, and more than 200 fragments of Lissa virus. The freezer broke in 2021 and the materials transferred, but a gap in the paperwork means no one knows where they went.
The U.S. government revealed yesterday that vials of smallpox had been forgotten for decades and were just discovered in a cardboard box.
A new intelligence report from the U.S. Energy Department, it suggests COVID-19 likely originated from a laboratory leak in Wuhan, China.
Plum Island's facilities being relocated to Kansas is scary enough to look at your dinner plate a little differently. Thank you for watching and hanging out with me today. My name is Dan. This is Uncharted. If you enjoyed the video, learned anything, and want to see more, do me a favor, like, subscribe, comment, and share. It really helps out a smaller channel like mine, like a ton. If you have any recommendations for future topics, feel free to comment below. I'll read it, I'll respond, and possibly do a future episode on the subject. If you want to become a Red Hat Pirate, check out the Discord. It will be below. There's people in there debating and discussing these topics daily, from politics to paranormal to video games and trading card games. But thank you guys. Peace out.